This is Corinne.
And this is Ayanni.
And you're listening to Sex, Love, Literature, a pop culture podcast where we take a semi-scholarly look at why
and how
the sex stuff in media matters.
This episode, we're joined by Lauren and June, two fellow PhD candidates and podcasters, to talk about Netflix's Love is Blind and other dating and matchmaking reality TV shows.
In the first part of 2, we discuss how being on a reality show can turn people into characters, get into our own reality TV viewing practices, and discover that Ayanni has watched far more of them than she thought she had.
If you want to share your deep feelings about matchmaking TV, follow us and let us know on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at SexLoveLit.
And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms.
And remember to tune in to part 2 of our discussion.
Let's dive in.
Hello, SLL listeners. It's so exciting to have you all back for another episode of Sex, Love, Literature. This is a little, I don't know if bittersweet is the right word, but we're recording kind of on the heels of actually Corinne and I were actually together in the same space, last week as of recording?
Yeah, our university has a pretty early spring break, so I'm not sure exactly when this episode will drop, but we saw each other for real, in real life, in San Antonio, Texas for spring break.
Yeah, and it was really nice. So now kind of being back in we're in different rooms, podcasting space. I see her office. She sees the window that is behind me out into San Antonio.
I mean, now I know actually, where the window is in your house, though. So,
true.
My knowledge of your house is more specific. That's a weird thing to say. That's fine.
No. I mean, it makes sense. So much of our friendship at this point is, through screens. Plus, you got to see all the things that you don't see on Zoom, like my boxes and my junk. That's for friends only, not for, everyone.
But speaking of friends, we have a very special episode for you today. We have 2 special guests, Lauren and June. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Woo, Lauren and June.
Hey, y'all.
Hi, I'm June.
So, I guess really quickly before you all launch into your introductions, our episode today is going to be talking about romance reality TV.
I was thinking of it as reality dating shows or reality matchmaking shows.
Oh, okay. Reality matchmaking shows.
And also specifically Love is Blind.
Yeah. Spurred on by the fact that everyone on this call has watched Love is Blind and we have some feelings. But Lauren, June, who are y'all? Why are you here to talk about Love is Blind with us? What are your qualifications for this episode? Let me stop. I'm sorry. But yes, introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are. We're so excited to have you.
All right. Well, I'll do my my credentials right first. So I'm a PhD student in film and media. I studied documentary film and archives at UF, and I'm also the program coordinator at the Center for Humanities in the Public Sphere. But on a not professional level, I am a closeted, but I guess no longer closeted, reality TV show addict. I have been watching reality TV all the way back since I was in high school, and Bravo is just one of my main hobbies now. But also Love is Blind, ready to talk about it and reveal all of the trash TV that I've watched.
So I'm June. I'm a PhD student in comparative literature at UC Irvine. Lauren invited me here to be on the podcast because I am also a fellow reality dating show watcher, and I have a lot of experience with the Bachelor franchise specifically, but I've also watched Love is Blind. We are really excited to be here today.
And just to say that June and I are a podcast co-host of a podcast called Under Review about humanities graduate education. So we talk about that kind of stuff. And then when we're not talking about that kind of podcasting, June and I are usually talking about reality TV or what reality TV show we've been watching lately.
That's a good point.
So you guys are specifically primed to be our guests on this show is what it sounds like to me.
I mean, I feel like by you asking me to come on, you told me that I am the expert now.
I mean, but hold on, we're all grad students, so that means in a matter of time, we are all the experts on something, right? That's the rule. You go to grad school and now you're an expert. For me, it might be monster porn, but that's fine. I can be an expert on that.
Yeah. I mean, technically, like both Lauren and I study very like highfalutin, like high avant-garde film, and but this is more kind of our like off-time hobbies.
I feel like this is my outlet for watching documentary and experimental film in my academic life, and then I just apply what I have there to reality TV to justify watching it.
It's a good point. We use our intelligence to justify watching trash TV, or what most people would call trash TV. We are here to defend it today.
That's what we're here to do. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about, like, I really watch it for the editing. That's why I watch the reality TV.
That feels like a lie to me, but I'm going to let it go.
It is both a lie and not a lie. I really do. I can talk about how all the different shows and the different production companies have their own style of editing. Different channels have different house styles, and I could go on, but I won't because that would be boring for everyone else who's not into it. But I have opinions.
I will ask for a taste of that because as soon as you were talking, I was like, "Whoa, that's fascinating." So like, maybe boring to everyone else, but like, you've got me. So before we dive into our discussion of Love is Blind, I called the file Love is Blind et al., which will not be the actual name for the episode, but like it felt fitting having all of these PhD candidates on the chat. I think we should do a round of What's Sparking Joy? Okay, Corinne, what's sparking joy? What is that? Why are we doing this?
So What's Sparking Joy is a segment in which we briefly, or sometimes not so briefly, talk about something we're reading, watching, or listening to that we're enjoying. So something that's sparking joy for me will not be surprising. It is 2 Korean dramas because...
shock!
Because, that's all I watch. It's fine. The first one is Mr. Sunshine, which it came out a few years ago, so like I'm extremely late to the party, but it is so good. It's a historical K-drama set in the early 1900s in Korea when the Japanese colonial forces were looming, and it's extremely dramatic. And Leah Riley talked about it a little bit on our Love Triangles episode a few months ago, and it finally like spurred me on to watch it. And I think it's probably going to end up being in my top 3 K-dramas that I've seen. Certainly my top historical. It is so good. I highly recommend it. The other one that I'm watching is kind of opposite, still a K-drama, but it's called Business Proposal, and it is a super, super tropey rom-com, absolutely ridiculous setup, but it's super smart in how it's deploying the tropes, and it never sits with any of them too long. So like if we think about like contract dating or like mistaken identity, and like it has all of those things, but it like just stays with them long enough for it to be funny, and then like moves on to the next thing. And also the 2 lead actresses in it are absolutely carrying the drama. They're so funny.
Hilarious. Like so that's when we actually started watching, when Corinne was here, and legit laugh out loud funny, which I feel like something has to be really good to get me to like throw my head back and show all my teeth while I'm cackling. But yeah, not to step on what's sparking your joy, Corinne, but like, it's good.
So what's sparking joy for you, Lauren?
All right.
Passing the joy torch, I guess.
Okay. So sparking joy for me currently is Below Deck Sailing Yacht Season 3 because oh my gosh, you don't know about Below Deck and the many different spinoffs? Oh, wow. Okay.
No.
Below Deck is not most people, but I've used it as a gateway drug for people getting into Bravo. So it is a show about people who work on super yachts. And so it's kind of upstairs, downstairs, where you follow the crew, and then each like week they have a different, usually very horrible rich guest, and the show definitely makes fun of how tacky rich people are. But also, not only do you get that, then there's all these people living in close quarters You get so much drama, so many love triangles, so many hookups. It's just amazing. And so I would say don't watch season 1 of Below Deck because it was really bad. So each season, the cast kind of changes. There are some people that are always on, but what's kind of great about the show is that it changes every season. So Below Deck season 2 is, Below Deck Sailing Yacht. There's difference. So there's regular motor yacht Below Deck. There's sailing yachts. Sometimes they're in the Mediterranean. They have a new one that's in Australia called Below Deck Down Under. I haven't watched that one yet.
That sounds kinky, but
So that is season 2, probably one of the best seasons of Below Deck, maybe my favorite season of Below Deck, because I'll pitch it to you a little bit. They crash the boat, not once, but twice. There is multiple love triangles going on. Maybe there's just one, but there's one really good love triangle. There's also a pregnancy that happens and a denial by the father of that. So it has everything that you could ever possibly want in a reality TV show. So I would say if you're looking for something, definitely go watch it. And then the other thing in the podcast realm, because I just feel like I always have to give a podcast rec, because I feel like that's all I talk to people about most of the time, is I'm really enjoying the Ringers, Just Like Us, the Tabloids That Changed America podcast series. And it's kind of different than most of the Ringer series that they do, in that it's more of a scripted show. And there's a journalist who's doing a really great deep dive into the tabloid culture of the early 2000s, which is just chef's kiss, the best. So those are the things that are sparking joy for me. So June, what's sparking joy for you?
Yeah, I'll have to check out Below Deck Sailing Yacht. I was very curious when I saw that in the notes. I was like, wait, I'm going to look this up, because it does sound like a kind of show that I would really enjoy. So for me, right now, I've been watching, sort of following the Bachelor franchise. I feel like my relationship with The Bachelor is like, I don't even like the show. It does not spark joy for me, actually. However, I feel like this obligation to like continue tracking what's going on in that world. And so there's been an ecosystem of kind of affiliated like podcasts and recaps, various kinds of media, just affiliated with the show. So I will recommend some thoughtful takes on The Bachelor. Dear Shandy is a couple, so a husband and wife. The woman is a former contestant from The Bachelor, Charlene. And so she has these insider takes on what is going on, especially in terms of like the editing and the producer manipulation. And I just really enjoy their takes most of the time. Allie Barthwell, she's a comedy writer.
Oh God,
she's
so good.
Have you read her work? She's amazing.
Yeah. I don't watch The Bachelor either, but I almost always read her recaps.
Yes. Her recaps are just chef's kiss. And she also won an Emmy recently for her recaps of The Bachelor, I believe. And then this past weekend, I finally watched Tick Tick Boom, partly because Lauren told me a while back that she was watching it. And yeah, that was beautiful. I forgot how much I loved, musical theater. And it was just like, oh, heck, this is beautiful. It's like a Disney, but in real life, about like very serious themes.
That's a really great way to describe that film.
Yeah. So, I guess, Ayanni, do you want to share what's sparking joy for you?
Yes, I will take the joy torch, which I'm sorry, Corinne.
I've never said that before. I don't know why that came out of my mouth.
Such a euphemism. I was like, oh, the joy torch. Okay, is that like the magic stick?
I was thinking about Lady Gaga and the disco stick when you said that.
So I will take the joy torch on sex love
You're
literature.
welcome for that.
You're welcome.
It's thematic.
It's in my lexicon from now on. Bring that one in the bedroom. But so what's sparking joy for me today? So I wrote 2 things down, but I'm going to switch up one of them. But the first one is also a K-drama because Karin was here. So of course that means that I have to be sucked into K-dramas. However, it's on Netflix. It's called 39, and it is so good. It is about 3 women who are all on the precipice of turning 40, which for me is really nice as someone in their mid-30s. It's nice kind of seeing a story about women who are in a similar phase of life to me, even if they are making a lot more money than I am, as a dermatologist who owns her own practice, a woman who is an acting coach, and a woman who works as a manager at a fancy department store counter. But the show is about their friendship and how one of them is going to die. So it's like, you know what you're getting into from the jump, but it's so yeah. You go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was just gonna, you find out one of them is going to die within like the first 4 minutes, and I don't think I've ever like teared up so quickly at a K-drama. Like they get you right away. Oh, also, Lauren, you watched Crash Landing on You, right?
Oh yes, I did watch that one.
The main actress from Crash Landing on You is the lead in 39, and she continues to be excellent.
Yes, she does.
Okay, that might get me to watch it then, just for her.
It's really good, and she's really good. The acting is definitely top notch, and all of the male love interests are delightful in their own ways. I don't know who my favorite is yet. I see Corinne is making faces.
Oh no, there's one that I didn't like at first who like grew up. Anyway, there are characters that are complicated that are growing on me over time.
Yes.
Do you watch K-dramas at all, June, or not your cup of tea?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who watch K-dramas, but I've only really watched one. It's Okay to Not Be Okay, and I couldn't finish that one, unfortunately. Have you guys watched that one?
We did an episode on that one.
Okay. Yeah, not my thing. I like trashier TV. I need more.
Understood. But the second thing that's sparking joy, if we're going to run with the back on our bullshit trend. So, one of my dissertation chapters is about this cell phone game that I had started playing, I want to say, maybe 2 years ago. It's called Obey Me, One Master to Rule Them All, and it's an otome dating sim in which your main human character, gets sucked down into the devildom, which is like hell, and there are 7 hot demon brothers, and it's a story about you and the 7 hot demon brothers and your relationships with them and all that kind of stuff. And I had stopped playing because I was like, no, you want me to spend money, and I'm not going to spend money because I'm technically doing this for research, even though I go on every day for at least 20-25 minutes. However, I started working on that dissertation chapter. So I was like, well, let me log back in, gather some data, whatever. And the demons were like, oh my God, we missed you. Where have you been? And I was like, oh, well, my life is busy. I can't just be here with you guys all the time. And then I went back and played through some of the stories to record them for my chapter, and I was like, this shit is so zany. I really do enjoy it. So I've decided that I will continue playing through the stories, but not do all of like the extra stuff on the side that not was stressing me out, but was like, I'm not spending money on this. You can keep throwing this at me and I'm not going to do it. And you keep making new items and I'm just frustrated and I don't want to do it. So I'm playing with my demons again.
Didn't you start playing that like before the pandemic even started?
It was February of 2020, yes.
So yes, you did. Your relationship with the demon boys is older than the pandemic.
It was for research. They knew that. We knew what this relationship was. But the thing about it that is really funny, and then I'll stop, is that unlike a lot of otome games, it doesn't make you choose a route. So you can pretty much just flirt and romance all the demon brothers at the same time, which I've seen colloquially called the hoe route. And I enjoy that. I enjoy being like, yeah, I'm going to kiss you and then go in another room and kiss this guy, but not that guy. He gets on my nerves. So you can just bark like a dog. So like, it's fun. It's engaging. If you like those kinds of games, I recommend it because it's free to play if you don't want to spend money. So that's a round of what's sparking joy for everyone. I think we have learned some things about yachts and shows and, demons. So always a good round for me. And now I have some new things that I have to watch and check out. So reality TV, reality dating shows, reality matchmaking shows. Is that what you want to call them, Corinne? Is that what we're going with?
Yeah, I think we're defining it expansively. Any sort of like love or sex or romance that's going on in a reality dating show.
To kind of start, because I think I am not the newbiest, but the one with the least amount of matchmaking dating show experience. How did y'all come to these kinds of things? Which are the ones that either drew you in or got you really started on the trend? And I guess I'll go to Corinne first, since, technically we're hosting here. But Corinne, what about this made you want to even do an episode on it?
So, first of all, I'm extremely into Love is Blind. I think it's hilarious. But also, I went through a reality show phase, kind of, at the beginning of the pandemic before my K-drama phase started that I have not exited since.
Girl, that's not a phase. That's your life now.
Thank you for that. But I watched Love is Blind. I watched Too Hot to Handle. I watched The Circle. I watched The Floor is Lava.
I remember The Floor is Lava. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was more into Netflix reality shows than Netflix dating shows, or reality dating shows more broadly. But I do have very vivid memories of the first season of The Bachelor, which was an event that I was young when it aired, but since then I dip in and out of The Bachelor every now and then as a thing that I watch, because there's an odd balance of wanting to root for people to quote unquote find love and succeed, but also there's some messy drama going on. And I think there was a nice combination, particularly on the first season of Love is Blind, of people who I legitimately thought were at least being presented as good people, who was I hope you are happy together. That seems nice. But also people who are you are messy and probably a bad person. But that makes for good TV. So that's my sort of relationship to it. But I loved the first season. So when I saw there was a second season, I was I must watch that immediately. What about y'all, Lauren and June?
I guess I'll follow up because like I said, I have sort of watched The Bachelor since high school. Although I don't think I actually watched the first season. That might have been a little too early from when I started watching it.
I think I was definitely too young to watch it. But I think my parents had it on and I was present.
I see. That makes sense. Yeah, so I guess I'm drawn to watching reality TV shows partly for nostalgic reasons. I watched The Bachelor in high school while I was doing homework a lot of the time. And so I've just been sort of tracking it as I've grown older. And the franchise has, either stayed the same in some ways or changed more recently. They've been trying to push the kind of racial representation and more kind of feminist storylines. But there's a lot more to be done. I've also watched Married at First Sight, which I think is produced by the same company that produces Love is Blind. And I do think that production company, Kinetic Content, is a lot more they actually want a happy ending versus The Bachelor kind of amps up the drama and is trying to balance, ratings alongside actually producing a happily married couple. And Lauren and I have talked about Are You the One? I think this was one of the first times we really bonded was over Are You the One?
Are You the One is so good.
Which is an MTV produced dating show, and that kind of has its own generic rules. So I guess I'm
sorry, I forgot MTV produced reality dating shows. And when you said that, my brain exploded and I was like, oh my God, I used to watch that shit in high school. So it's fine. Continue,
Next?
Please.
Yes.
Oh, the Next Bus. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry.
Also...
Please continue.
Yeah, so it's interesting to think about it from a film studies perspective too, because kind of bringing our academic backgrounds into it. But I think the reason that I've stayed with reality dating shows for so long is partly because they're about the private realm and about gender relations. And when I was an undergrad, my BA thesis was all about kind of female sexuality and female desire and what happens when women are trying to return the male gaze, for instance. And so that's that's just an academic way to, I guess, talk about sex and intimacy and gender. And I feel these shows, they kind of provide like a cultural touchstone to open up conversations around gender.
Mm-hmm.
And so recently in like the Bachelor franchise, for instance, there's been a lot of conversations around like gaslighting, slut shaming, what manipulative behavior looks like, etc. And I think those are really good and useful discussions to have publicly.
Oh, June, I feel like this is one of the reasons why we're such good friends, because we both have this like overlapping interest, and I think we're both like very like reality TV shows what the culture actually is and like represents it. So I'm always thinking of that. So for me, I remember watching, of course, The Bachelor. I think that, or it was actually The Bachelorette. I'm sorry. Ashley Abear's season of The Bachelorette when I had my wisdom teeth out when I was 16.
Oof.
And I remember just being like, I just need something that's just like on. And I just became like so invested. I also think I haven't watched every season of Bachelor, Bachelorette, but it seemed like her season when I watched it, that really was like a love story, the way it was portrayed. I think that was like a little bit of an older Bachelorette era where they actually did fall in love. And so I don't know, when I was like 16, I was really into it. But I think that was the only season I really watched at the time. Like I didn't come back to watch it. But then I had like dabbled in other reality shows like Millionaire Matchmaker, for better or worse, and Flavor of Love and Rock of Love. Kind of, yeah. I mean, Ayanni, I think you have more experience with the genre than what you think.
I do, but keep going. We'll come back to me.
So, like June, and I really think this was one of the first conversations we ever bonded over, is that something we really bonded over was that I love Are You the One? I tell so many people to watch it. Anyone I've ever told to watch it loves it, becomes obsessed, even if they're not into reality TV. So it's just like, I kind of see that as like a great way to start getting people into the reality TV universe. And I'm really sad that I think it got canceled. But I think and like the last season was so good because it was
the last season was fantastic though. It was a good season to end on, to be honest.
That's a much more positive way to look at it. So I just really, enjoy that. And I love the trash and the drama and, of course, watching the editing. And I also, so yeah, you're picking up, Ayanni, I know. So I still love watching, like, Bachelor in Paradise is probably my favorite Bachelor iteration currently going on. I think maybe because it has a lot of, like, Are You the One vibes without, like, the game aspect to it. But it's just, like, conventionally attractive people making bad decisions usually makes great TV. So this is just, like, the kind of mess that I love. So Love is Blind is just, of course, that falls under the umbrella of, like, something that I absolutely 100% have to watch. So Ayanni, I think you're having some epiphanies of like you've watched more of this than you think.
So listening to y'all talk, I guess I forgot that I was once a youth. But I apparently, because I used to watch a lot of like the MTV ones, because I would just have MTV on, right? Back when you used to just have MTV on. But I remember in college, like watching Flavor of Love was a thing. We would all get together around like the dorm TV and watch it. And then New York had a spinoff, right? I Love New York.
I love New York. I love New York 2. New York Goes to Work.
Yeah. New York Goes to Work.
I think it was called that. There is definitely one where she goes to work.
Good for her. But when you said Next, June, it like blew my brain open because I was like, there was Next. There was the one where your parents would like hook you up with
parental control.
Yes. I'm like pointing at them on my screen right now. Parental control. And there was another one that was another like MTV dating show that was around the same time where your friends would be on the bus listening into the date that you went on.
I can't remember what that one was called.
Oh, I think I woke my cat up because I'm like gesturing so much. But so I was really into like those as a teen and in college. And I remember there was one, I don't even remember when this was. The Millionaire Matchmaker just kind of exists in my haze of my existence. But there was a day that me and my friend, Ignacio, who I hope is doing very well. But me and my friend Ignacio were like, we're just going to like drink wine and watch Millionaire Matchmaker. So we like watched TV at his house and then we went to get something to eat. And then we went to my house and watched more Millionaire Matchmaker in the basement. And we just did this, I want to say for like a good 12 hours. So I watched so much of that show, but then never again.
I mean, I think that's the way to
day.
watch it, because it's just, you can only take so much of Patty Stanger, right?
Yeah, it was a lot. But I do remember very strictly her rule of like, do not have sex while you all are in the program. So one thing I'm going to want us to think about a little later is like how sex is used in these kinds of shows, either as like a thing that they want us to see or not see. Like, it's not, you know, they don't show us the sex, but things that they want us to like think is happening versus the shows that are like, oh, don't do the sex, and how that then plays into things. But more recently, on that tip, I watched Too Hot to Handle, seasons 1 and 2, which were delightful in a very strange way. And then Love is Blind, I was like, okay, if we're going to do an episode, I'll watch a couple episodes of it, but then got completely sucked in part because Ayanna and I are very close to being similar people, and I don't know how I feel about this. Her name is my name with the A and the I inversed, and then we both look really good in yellow, and we're both small and loud and goofy and have cats that are fat. So, like, wasn't there something else? Do we both have nose rings? And
yeah, also nose rings. Small.
But, yeah, so I think I got really attached to her, and that pulled me into the show.
So I think this is a good moment to transition into our discussion of Love is Blind Season 2 specifically. So for those of you listening who have not perhaps watched it, Love is Blind is a reality show on Netflix. The setup is that there are a number of singles looking to get married
very fast.
Hopefully. We can discuss that. Who agree to date people through a wall. So they don't see them. They just talk to them for like, I think they have 10 days to talk to people. And they basically do speed dating and then can like narrow it down. And then they have to, for the purpose of the show, decide to get engaged without having seen each other. And then they see each other for the first time, and then they go to Mexico to a resort to have sex, and then they have to get married within like 4 weeks. And it's set up as this, they keep calling it like the experiment.
They do the experiment.
Which is
the
ridiculous.
Experiment.
But I love the like pseudoscience of it. It's like, will we truly find out if love is blind? But in the first season and the second season, we follow 5 or 6 couples from when they meet each other in what they call the pods to their engagement to their wedding, when they have to decide whether they're going to say I do or I don't, in the words of the show. And it is absolutely ridiculous, but also especially that like everyone buys into, or at least seems to buy into, the premise that like they either have to get married in 4 weeks or never see each other again, as if there are no other options. But so that's Love is Blind. Season 2 just finished airing a few weeks ago, and then I think season 3 is in the works. There's a Love is Blind Japan and a Love is Blind Brazil. Yeah, so what were people's reactions to this season of Love is Blind? What made you want to tune in a second time, if you did, versus me bullying Ayanni into watching it for the first time?
She always bullies me.
And what made you stick around? What is it about Love is Blind that works? Or are there things about it that don't work?
For me, I think Love is Blind is one of the dating shows that maybe feels like it most accurately represents what it's like to be dating now with the app culture of dating. And I think that's why I find it really interesting, because yes, on Love is Blind, the whole concept is like, you can't see the other person. You have to talk through this wall. But I think that in a lot of ways, and yes, the apps are very visual and it is all about that kind of aspect of it. But I also think that there is this thing where you can have a great conversation with someone on the app and then go meet them in the real world, and it can just be nothing, you know? And so this question of chemistry that I think is also central to Love is Blind is very similar to kind of a lot of the discussions I think that happen right now around dating with the rise of apps. And then also just thinking about how, especially with like pandemic dating, Netflix kind of predicted what that would be like, with having to kind of date in this like space where you're in your own little pod and you can't go see the other person. And so kind of thinking about, you know, what are the ways that you connect, or how do you draw connections when that's the circumstance that you're in? So, I mean, besides just like my love also of reality TV dating shows, I'll pretty much give almost any of them a chance. Not all of them. If the trailer isn't good, I won't watch it, because I will actually out myself here and say that I have not watched Too Hot to Handle, and I don't know why.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so June and I, being like reality TV show connoisseurs, have both skipped that one. There was just something about it where I was like, I don't know.
For me, I think it's because it wasn't about love. Like, I feel like at least all these other shows like presume that love is the goal, but that one was just about like resisting lust or temptation.
Okay,
The funny thing about it is, not to derail Love is Blind, but like the focus of the show is building what they call genuine connections, because all of the people that they bring on are like, they like having the sex. They like having the sex with a lot of people. So, but what they've said in their interviews and stuff is that they kind of go to having sex and then don't want to establish these kind of like long-term relationships afterwards. So what kind of the gist of the show is that they take any kind of sexual contact off of the table to see if they then want to still build relationships with these people. And then they're awarded like kiss time, which is weird.
What? They're awarded
so weird.
That is so
weird.
So
It's
strange.
weird.
I mean, like,
but they also go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I mean, that is like kind of like how The Bachelor is, where it's like very like, you know, they can kiss and they can make out, and we have to hear it in the, you know,
I hate hearing. I hate
noises.
the sounds of kissing.
But like, in, you know, like the fantasy suites are like a huge thing. But then like to actually, like, Bachelor doesn't even like say like, oh, you have kiss time now. But that is, so I think that is also kind of addressing a different part of dating app culture with like the hookup culture. So okay, maybe you'll get me a little bit more interested, Ayanni.
Well, I think it's also interesting. I only watched the first season of Too Hot to Handle, and I watched the entirety of it in one evening. The beginning of the pandemic was a weird time.
It really was.
But it's also like bringing money into it in a way. So there's like a money pot that every time people like engage in physical contact, that's like off limits without like getting permission because they built a genuine connection, then it like takes money from the pot. So there is this sort of like, well, I mean, it makes the money involved, I think, more obvious. So like bringing it back to Love is Blind a little bit, there are ways watching it when like, particularly when we see like the rings and like the weddings and the dresses, where it's like, this is being paid for. And I think especially on like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, like the money being thrown around. Although I will also say something that was hilarious to me in the second season of Love is Blind is that the music budget must have been way better, because the first season the music was absolutely terrible. So the monetary aspect behind the appeal of going on one of these shows, I think, is interesting and is put more on the table in Too Hot to Handle than it is in some other shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just like the, you know, the prize that they give you or the engagement ring. It's also like about influence and how much, you know, screen time you get, which translates to Instagram followers, which translates to, you know, sponsorship deals and things like that. So that's definitely become like a much bigger and talked about aspect of like these like dating show, you know, contestants, like motivations, right? Like, are they here for the right reasons, right? Like that's always something that's asked for Bachelor contestants. But I do think that for like Love is Blind specifically with like kinetic media, like I feel like they, like, I think you mentioned this, Corin, but they have this like sort of pseudo-scientific approach that makes it seem like they're a little bit more serious or like more grounded or more like rational in a way than like something like The Bachelor. Because Married at First Sight, which is the other kind of franchise that they have, like these people like are paired up by matchmakers who like look at their kind of personality profile and determine who the best fit is for the other person, and then they have to like get married at the altar, and that's the first time they see each other. So you kind of see a similar thing, I think, with Love is Blind, where it's like this is like seen as an experiment, right? Like we're gonna manufacture these like social conditions to get people like to commit to marriage. And I do think that's also like a reaction to like dating app culture when like
For sure.
being non-committal is like so prevalent.
So, kind of pulling on that, and was it you, June, that was talking about you were talking about the Instagrammability of people and getting the followers and quote unquote the right reasons. What do you all think about do we call them a cast? Is that the appropriate
They
terminology?
call each other a cast.
Okay, so what do we think about the cast of Love is Blind season 2? Were there people that like instantly you were attached to? Were there people that you were like, oh no, you're terrible, why are you on the show? Like, I already talked about the fact that I was like irrationally attached to Ayanna and wishing for her happiness, but what about you all? Were there people you were excited to follow, people that you were like hate watching? How did that work for y'all?
So I think when I talk about reality TV, I just want to say that I do think of people as characters. And I think that's something, so cast, character. And I think that even more so with Love is Blind season 2, I did think that there were kind of starting to develop certain types that are on the show, or character types that the show has, right? Like you have... Go ahead, Ayanni.
I was going to ask you if you could elaborate like what you mean when you're saying you're thinking of them as characters, because I think that's a really interesting turn that people who are not big on reality TV might not be thinking about. So
so going back to like the documentary thing is kind of when you put a camera in front of someone, they're always going to be acting on some level, and maybe we all act in different parts of our lives, right? So reality TV, even though it's wanting to, represent reality or be like real, I still think that people are playing a part usually, or playing it up for the cameras or something like that. So I still think of everyone as a character. And actually, there have been some people when reality TV was first starting to become a genre unto itself, who wanted a different name than reality TV. So Mark Burnett, who's the creator of Survivor, actually wanted to call the genre unscripted drama. And sometimes I think unscripted drama might be a better word for it.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Not for everything, but for shows like Love is Blind and stuff like that, unscripted drama maybe is the way to go. And so sometimes I think a bit of it more in that paradigm than I do of like reality, or like this is like someone's real life. I do think Love is Blind has an interesting kind of dichotomy, and that it does have the very like produced social experiment aspect to it that you have in the pods. But then when you get out and they are forced to live with each other and stuff like that, I do think it kind of shifts to a little bit more documentary mode. Even in its artifice, though, of wanting to show like this is what couples go through when they move in together and different things like that. So I do think the show is kind of combining different types of documentary.
That's a good point. And when you're saying like character types, right, I was thinking about like a villain. I mean, there are other character types too, like, the girl next door, or, like the girl who like everybody is pursuing. But so I mean, I think it's like pretty much undebated that like Shake is like the villain of the
He called himself the villain.
Like,
he wanted to be the villain.
It's his own fault. He the worst.
I mean, Shayna was right there, and Shake was like, you know what? I'm going to be worse.
I think that Shake had watched, it was very clear that he's watched reality TV, and so he knew the things, and so he could play into being the villain would get him more screen time. And I did hear a rumor that he was actually way worse in the reunion, like it was very watered down what they showed of him.
Yeah, so I've heard. Maybe from you.
I'm the source of the rumor.
I trust you.
But yeah,
no,
so
I've
Shake,
read that online too.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Shake is definitely the villain. But I was thinking of like even the show is kind of starting to come up with its own kinds of characters that you always see. Like you have Shayna, who really reminds me of Jessica from season 1, who was, kind of like really into someone else who was engaged to someone else. So creating the love triangle
That's
kind of
hilarious.
situation.
It's like the casting director was like, we need a Jessica 2.0. Like, who do we cast as Jessica?
Exactly. They were like, another blonde woman? Yes. Put her in.
Yes.
Put her in. So just thinking about how the show is kind of starting to create its own kinds of characters that you get from it. Because I mean, like even thinking about The Bachelor, like there are definitely certain kinds of characters that you expect to be on The Bachelor, right? Like I think the one right now that's been really big is like the Southern beauty queen pageant girl kind of type that is always on the show. So different shows kind of see what formula is starting to work and what characters people want to see, and then they keep casting that. But I would like to talk about people that I actually did like.
Yeah.
So Deepti is the best.
Yes.
I think
Yes,
that's
she
like a
is.
universal thing. She is iconic, I think. As far as the show,
I feel like when like women are like kind of treated badly by like emotionally immature men, and they are able to like handle it with like a lot of like grace and like strength, I think that just really makes everybody kind of admire what they're going through, because that's sort of what's happening with the Bachelor finale too, like with the two new bachelorettes. They had to handle this like extremely painful rejection, but they both like handled it with like such maturity and like empathy, and it was like, it's beautiful to see when that happens, you know, even if the usually dude in this context is like really badly behaved, right?
That makes me think, you brought up gender earlier, June, and it makes me think of what our expectations are for women versus men in these kinds of settings. Because don't get me wrong, I shed a tear when Deepti's mother came out and was like, "I'm so proud of you." I was like, her mommy loves her. So I was very touched by that. And also by how much Natalie's father loved her. And he was like, "You're my baby and I love you, and whatever you do, I'm proud of you." I'm like, daddies, it makes me cry. But I think it's very interesting that, in a way, we expect Shake to behave badly and are then emboldened by Deepti choosing herself. But, like, she had every right to be like, "Wow, you were a real asshole to me. Fuck you, bro. I'm gonna go hang out with my folks." But would she have then been seen in the same light if she had flipped him off on the altar and gone away? Right? So I think there's some interesting questions that are kind of raised about how women are expected to behave when in these kind of heterosexual situations, the men that are with them are behaving badly. Because like one of the things I've seen floating around a lot about Natalie, and it seems like people are kind of mixed about her, but I thought she should run from the beginning. But when Shane was like, "I don't believe in 401ks," I was like, "Ooh, girl, escape." Escape key, control alt delete, get out of this. But the fact that she still went and talked to him afterwards, I was like, I don't know. She seemed really upset and almost like, I don't know. And this might be the production and the editing, but like the way he blew up at her and the way it all came together, it kind of felt like she did not feel safe. So like in that instance, why do we want her to then go and talk to him as viewers? I feel like she should go be safe and not be near this man that doesn't make her feel comfortable. So I'm going to stop rambling, but it's just, I think that's kind of an interesting question.
Well, I think maybe one more person we can throw into the mix just to make it a little bit harder to untangle all of this is like, what about how Sal handled the Mallory thing at the very end, where he said, you know, there were things that kind of went down between us, but I'm not going to air them out. So kind of also taking this kind of high road stance that is a little bit different, that we don't always expect the male characters to do. Because I think that like if we go back to maybe, is it Nick Viall or something, all the way back on The Bachelorette, when he got mad at
and
Andy. He aired out all of that stuff, right? So that's like a very, sorry, we're talking about something that maybe people don't know.
He aired out the fact that they had slept together, I think, in the fantasy suites. And so like with the fantasy suites, it's like, even though you assume they're sleeping together, like it's usually just implied. Like nobody says directly, "We had sex" on camera. And so the fact that he said that was kind of like a violation of her privacy.
Right. So I think that, you know, maybe there is some movement then in like the gendered stereotypes that we expect to see on a show like that we get on The Bachelor for sure. But maybe Love is Blind is trying to find some other characters, because we have seen that so many times. So I kind of felt like, yes, they're still using things like Shayna and Jessica that seem very typical of reality TV, but I think that they're trying to find some other people.
True. And also like Jarrett and Ayanna's love story like was also kind of atypical for like a reality TV produced romance.
How so?
I think because at first, right, he was kind of into both her and Mallory. And then he kind of like at some point switched gears after being rejected by Mallory and then pursued Ayanna. And, you know, I feel like their relationship, I mean, it seems to work, right? It seems to be like very happy and they're still married today. But I feel like that's not something you see that often. It's like somebody kind of picking their second choice and then being super happy. Although it has happened before on The Bachelor, like many times.
I mean, Ari.
That's, yeah, Ari and Lauren. Good point. Good point. So you're right. There's like a template for that as well. I'd forgotten.
I mean, something that was a lot more apparent to me in this season of Love is Blind than the first season was how much they were all dating each other and like the, I don't know, the messiness or the quote unquote connections that they had made in the pods translated in more than just like Jessica being a mess in the first season to like a lot of them having sort of unresolved feelings that like if they had been in a different mood one day, they could have made a different choice and ended up engaged to an entirely different person. And I think maybe in that way it felt almost more like a reality dating show to me this season than as much as it was a reality matchmaking show because there was more of the sort of emphasis on these other relationships that they had cultivated that they then had to like continue seeing that person through filming.
Yeah, that love like square, right, between the four, like Mallory and Sal and Jarrett and Ayanna. That was definitely like a bit uncomfortable to watch. But yeah, what did you guys think about that situation?
So I was rooting for them because of my already mentioned attachment.
Who do you mean by them?
Oh, Ayanna and Jarrett.
Okay.
And honestly, I just want everybody to be happy. Like, you know, I don't want them to be miserable. But I think in a way, I was a bit more forgiving of the fact that you are getting to know 14 other people behind a wall. And if we think about dating broadly, right? Not most people, I would say, do not marry the first person that they have an attachment to. You know what I mean? And that being a second choice, I'm putting quotes around that, is kind of weird to say. I think because this is such a compacted experience, it feels like, well, I didn't get this one, I'm going to go for that one. But like a lot of times you date someone and then you break up and then you date someone else. That doesn't mean that the person you date second is the second choice. It just means that they're the person that you dated next.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. Yeah, I agree.
So I just wanted them to be happy, you know. I guess one of the things that made me nervous about a lot of these relationships is that it felt like, and this, Lauren, this might be production and editing, so this might be a good place for you to jump in here, but it felt like a lot of them had a lot of anxiety and like stress that was bubbling to the surface. And I kept being like, wow, I really want these folks to go to therapy. But I don't know if that was something that the show was doing to make me feel that way. Like, for example, when Nick and Danielle were like, yeah, we started couples therapy in the reunion, I was like, good for you. Like, I'm really happy about that. But yeah, so I felt like sometimes they were like playing up Ayanna's anxiety about things to make it dramatic in a way. So yeah, that was my reaction.
I definitely think they pick things up and magnify them. I think that's pretty easy to do in editing with reality TV, but I also don't think that like for the most part it's really hard to like fully misrepresent someone because people do what they do. And I think also like, you know, they do talk about, I think on the show, a lot of the anxiety of like, it is such a compressed timeline. It's a lot of time to spend together with someone who you didn't know a couple weeks before. So I could see how the anxiety kind of starts to come out and like having the camera in your face and different things like that. With your point about therapy, a lot of the time what people say who've been on reality TV is like, it does become kind of therapeutic for them to be able to watch themselves and their relationship back. So I think with like Ayanna and Jarrett, it was really great for them because they seemed like they had really worked through a lot of stuff in their relationship, and like compromise is such a big part of relationships. And I wonder if they would have figured that out had they not had the show to show them that. So, and that's a pretty common thing that I think people on reality shows will say. Like on Real Housewives, a lot of time when you have a new Real Housewife on and there's a new house husband, he will usually be almost horrible the first season, like so horrible. And then the house husband will watch himself back and totally adjust for the next season. And then they do talk about on the reunion a lot of the time. They'll be like, I saw myself and I was just so appalled at how I was acting. And they kind of change. I mean, maybe they're not that self-reflective. Maybe I'm giving them a little too much credit, but I do think like a lot of people see how they act and then they use it as a way to
That's
change.
So interesting.
Oh yeah, that definitely happens. Absolutely, like with the Bachelor franchise as well. But I think maybe it's also just like more of a universal experience to like if we see ourselves, you know, being filmed, saying certain things, doing certain things, and then, you know, we have this like public accountability with like so many people, you know, having opinions about the way that we act and behave. You know, you start, you know, it forces you to self-reflect. But I also wanted to add on to the point about, you know, therapy, in that it's funny because I feel like these dating shows also perpetuate a kind of like therapy speak. Like a lot of the times, like the audience would, you know, diagnose characters with certain things. Like, for instance, I've seen like people saying like, you know, Danielle seems like really anxious. Like maybe she has anxious, preoccupied attachment, etc.
Okay.
And you also get like you know, like therapists reviewing these shows as well. There's like this YouTuber named, is it like Therapists in Seattle, I think, who actually has like zoomed in on certain moments in Love is Blind and just like talked about the psychology behind it.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, this makes me even more not want to go on a show because like I don't want my business out there like that. even more like my personal, I don't know, mental issues being like put under a microscope even more than like my romantic relationships.
I really think like what reality show you would be willing to go on says so much about you as a personality. Like a question I love to ask people is just thinking about like tentpole reality television, like network television. Would you rather go on Survivor or The Bachelor?
Oof. I was going to say that I would go on the cooking show with Nicole Byers. But I have to choose between Survivor and The Bachelor.
I mean, we can throw that one. I think like you saying that's the show I would choose to go on. That's like a great, like, you know how everyone has theirs like Myers-Briggs and stuff? We should say like what reality show would you go on as your like personality?
Well, I put myself out there, so now I'm waiting for y'all free.
Oh man,
I mean,
hard question. Is it just between those two, or can we choose any other?
I think Ayanni threw in
show?
Something that's more interesting than what I posed. So, like, if there's a show that you think that, like, yeah, I feel like I'd be good on that show.
I feel like I'd be okay on The Circle on Netflix.
I would watch you on The Circle.
I would watch you too. Would you play as yourself or would you catfish? Sorry, if you do go on the show, I'm going to out you as like what you're going to do.
Oh, I would absolutely catfish. I mean, I would be myself, but not use pictures of myself. Like, it would be my personality and, like, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't say I have a PhD because I'm assuming I will have a PhD by the time this could theoretically happen. Let's hope I graduate. But, like, yeah, I would – different pictures, but I don't think I could, like, keep track of a different person that I was pretending to be.
Huh. So I guess I'll go next. I mean, if it was between like Survivor, and I haven't actually watched that much Survivor, but I know it's like sort of more based on, is it more based on like physical challenges and also like networking sort of with the group?
A lot of it, I think even more than like the physical part of it is really your gameplay. So it's Survivor. I mean, if we want, Survivor is also kind of like a chess game kind of thing because you have to think like how many moves ahead is everyone else at the same time and like it's a lot of like influencing and talking to people and knowing how much to reveal, how much not to reveal, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it is, you have to have a lot of social savvy.
I feel like I would do better on The Bachelor because I'm more of a one-on-one type person. However, I do like physical challenges. So I would go on a show like MTV's The Challenge, if you guys have watched that one, which also involves a lot of politicking, but with like physical and like crossword, or not crossword, but like puzzle game challenges thrown in. So yeah, that's a show I would go on. How about you, Lauren?
I mean, I think this question is really hard. That's why I like asking it and not answering. So I think that, like, okay, let's just say I like did actually have a real talent, I would want to go on Top Chef, I think, because I just love seeing people just like perform to like the highest level, and it's just about their creativity, and it's not as, I think older Top Chef used to be more about the cattiness between the contestants, but now it's really about just like someone doing their best, and I will actually cry watching it sometimes. So I think that I would do that. Being a vegetarian, it might not work out for me, but because they'd make me cook something crazy. But if I were a talented chef, I think that I would want to go on Top Chef.
Oh, well, it was impromptu, but like I was really here for it. That actually functions as a really great kind of like pause point for us. As we were recording, we realized we have a lot of things to say, not only about Love is Blind, but just thinking about reality TV in general, or I should say reality matchmaking, reality dating TV in general. So we're gonna actually pause here and split this into 2 episodes. Oh my gosh, did you foresee that you were gonna get 2 episodes about romance TV? Probably not, because I'm not the best at posting on Instagram about these things, but it's fine. So as our kind of stopping point, Lauren, June, why don't you tell people where to find you, where they can find you individually if you want to be found, but also as a unit with your podcast. And I will say that Lauren and June will be joining us for the second half of this conversation. They're not going anywhere, but just in case, I feel like it's good to plug yourselves. Lauren, you go first.
Okay, so I keep a little bit of a low profile on social media, so I don't have any out there socials.
Yeah, same here.
That's okay. So, I don't want to blow up your spots. Like, not my plan.
So, but I will say that you can catch June and I talking about graduate education and the humanities on our podcast called Under Review, which is dropping in April.
Yay!
So, look us up with that, and if you search for UF Humanities and UCHRI, which is the University of California Humanities Research Institute, the podcast is hosted between those 2 institutions. June, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, please tune in. We're excited to chat with you about how to change graduate education. A very different topic than reality TV.
So just to check, can we find you on Spotify, Apple TV, Stitcher, etc., or is it specifically on those 2 websites?
Apple Podcasts.
Did I say Apple TV?
You did.
Oh my gosh. Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, so far we are hosted by Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that's where you can find us.
And as always, you can find us at Sex Love Lit, one word, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Be sure to come back for part 2, reality TV and Love is Blind.
Thanks for listening.